Hello.
Hello.
Um, hello, Nibras, bringer of light, just to be proper here.
Hello, Simon. Strength of mountains, hearer of words unspoken, listener of all things.
My title got longer.
Every time.
Wow, amazing. How are you on this wonderful day?
I'm good. I feel good now. I feel, yeah, calm and spacious and thankful to you for your patience and chilledness. I always feel very chaotic in relation to you. Like, I feel like a lot of chaos, and you're just kind of quite calm and on time. And I'm just like, oh my God, Simon, where do I sit? Where do I do this? And then you're just like, it's cool. It's okay. So I really appreciate that because I feel chaotic, but I don't feel bad about the chaos, which is pretty nice as an experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I can feel that too. I am like, I'm always writing like no stress. It's like no, because I can feel it. You're like, I'm just doing the thing. I'm like, no, it's fine. Do the thing. I know. Um, it's a nice, and I can feel there's some sort of polarity, and I can feel it too, and it's nice. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna be, and I'm also late. It's not like I could also profit a lot from an hour extra and stuff. So I carry the chaos within me too. That's why I'm very sympathetic to it, and I can just kind of
Mm,
act like I don't have it. I can just like
mm.
you know
So it's a very, very good act. How are
act.
you feeling?
I'm good. I'm happy, man. It's a it's been beautiful days out here in Berlin. Sun's out, guns out. Uh,
Thumbs out.
I saw Brent and Helena yesterday.
Hey,
Uh,
beautiful.
yeah, so beautiful. Was so nice. We were in the park. We did some painting. Oh, I wish I had the painting here
You
now. I could
painted
show.
in the park?
Yeah, it was like a Helena thing.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
It was so beautiful too.
Yeah.
She's just like, Simon, here's a canvas, here's a beer, here's a brush, and here's some paint. And I'm like, baby, like, let's paint. It's so good.
Beautiful.
Um, and I'm super happy to record a podcast in this daytime. I've
Mm.
done some evening ones with the previous ones I did with Tashin and Anansi because they're in a different
Hey,
time zone. Yeah.
beautiful.
And you're in the UK, which is the same time zone almost.
It's kind of the same, and relative to everything else that it's been for the last 4 months. It's like, oh, it's an hour at this stage.
I wanted to ask you about your travels. Out of sheer personal curiosity, I look at your Instagram. You're in many very tropical and aquatic and beautiful places. Would you like to tell me where you've been and what you've experienced, roughly speaking?
I'm not sure I can tell you everything that I've experienced. I feel like that. Yeah, that would take a long time. We just have to relive it. Where I've been, sure, yeah. I was in Berlin. That's where I last saw you, and that's where I started off the year. I did New Year's in Berlin, and then I went to the UK to see my family. Then I went to Portugal for a residency. That was a week long or so residency, and that was near Alentejo. And then I did a few days in Lisbon, and then came to say goodbye to my family and prepare for kind of being off for a few months. Then I went to Mexico first, well, actually straight to Puerto Escondido for a writing retreat with Foster, who are a really lovely group of people. And I don't know if are you aware of Foster via the webs and Twitter?
Foster.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing you said on Twitter?
Just the internet and Twitter. I'm just
Mhm.
curious if you've come across them.
No.
So Foster is, I mean, a few things, but I think predominantly they're a writing community, and they have a really wonderful collection of writers. And they've also been running these cohort experiences, these like writing workshops and sessions that are, they feel a lot more, they just feel a lot more aligned because it's kind of the way that I feel about work and making work, whether it's writing or drawing. what is our emotional relationship to work and creation, and how does emotional well-being and writing actually tie in, and where does something like productivity fit into all of that. So they do all of these amazing sessions that are about, I think, creating from an embodied place, or like tapping into the body and working with the emotions and the blockers that come up. And they also have an editing service if you sign up for the community, where you can publish your work and lots of the other writers edit it. And so you also like begin to develop relationships in that way, because you're reading each other's long form pieces and providing feedback, and you kind of become familiar with people's ideas over time. So that's Foster, and they're a really lovely group of people. Dan's the founder, and Foster were super kind to give me a scholarship. They put out a tweet. Twitter brings many good things into my life. They put out a tweet where they were
Hell yeah.
like, nominate writers that you know, and we're going to offer them a scholarship into our writing course. And I was nominated by a few lovely friends, and then they reached out and they're like, hey, do you want to be part of this? I was like, of course, I'd love to. All I do is write things, so let's write together with other people. And then they extended the scholarship to their in-person retreat, which was just like incredibly kind of them. And it just so worked out that I had like tickets from last year where I was meant to go to Mexico. I had to cancel my flight and move it later on. So I basically had a ticket to the exact same spot where the retreat was being held. And I just like called the airline. I was like, hey, can I use this now? And they were like, yeah, like
This is
things happen.
possible? That's amazing. I didn't
It
know
was
that
awesome.
about flight tickets. What?
It was awesome. Well, I mean, I had more points than tickets, but it was
Oh,
capped to certain destinations, and I
oh.
was like, I'm gonna go. I'm basically redoing the trip that I ended up canceling last year. And the airline were like, that's great, that's simple, go for it, And so it worked out really nicely. Flew over, went to Puerto, did the retreat, which was quite the experience. It ended up being really intense actually, because I was just fresh out of Medley, and then the short residency that I did afterwards. And so I was really in the space of like, I'm really not looking to do any emotional or healing work. Like I just want to hang out, and I want to write some things. Like I want to see the dolphins. And we saw the dolphins. We saw an insane number of dolphins actually. I
Oh,
think there
that's
were
good.
around like over 100 dolphins swimming around us. I've never been surrounded by that many. It was wild, and just some beautiful experiences. They really curated and created like an incredible retreat itinerary, and just really like I'd lived in Puerto Escondido the year before, so it's super cool to come back and kind of have somebody curate these different parts of it, and kind of experience it in this way. So they did an amazing job there. And the retreat was really intense for me. I think I really was at, as you know, like my social capacity, and I think definitely my emotional capacity, and absolutely my like introspection and emotional unwrapping capacity.
All three
And
capacities are
all
capped,
the
bro.
capacities, you're just capped out.
Putting the cap
Um,
in capacity, man. We're at cap, baby. We can't. Oh yeah, I remember
it's
how we were like kind of where and when we parted ways in Berlin. It was nice that I could see you off, and I think this is really what I was curious about. I think that's really what I was curious about, because you were like, Simon, no more, no more. And then I see you on the gram. You're in retreat 1, retreat 2. I'm like, what is she doing? I'm just curious. Like, is that good? And so how was it? How did it? But it was intense again, right?
It was, I mean, here's the thing. I really thought writer's retreat, like genuinely, I really went in very innocently. I was like, we're gonna write some stuff, and we're gonna, and I think it was phenomenal as a retreat experience. Like it was essentially like a buffet of healing modalities and wellness experiences. And I think and a lot of people came to that from a place of rest and restfulness. And so they could try out all of these modalities that they hadn't tried out before. Um, I think just because of the nature of my life, been exposed or like had taken part in those modalities, and I'd just been in a lot of healing spaces. So I was surprised by how much it felt like a healing retreat. And I think that was intentional on Foster's part, because when you do the emotional work, like in my experience, the creative work just kind of flows. It takes care of itself.
Mm.
And so I think they approached it really well. I was just in a place where we were doing a lot of like coaching work. They had a phenomenal somatic coach there, and there was a lot of just digging and opening, and it was I got very overwhelmed because of where I was, and I'd come in, like I said, kind of emotionally at capacity, and so I also got a bit triggered, and then we were doing this like kind of almost therapeutic work with each other, and I struggled and just had the conversations and was honest about it and just said, hey, like this is amazing. Here's why I'm struggling right now. It's just kind of the space that I've come from. So I did that, and then went to Mexico City and spent actually a bit more time with the foster team for that after the retreat, and that was awesome. Just like reflecting and sharing and kind of telling them like I told you now, and hearing how they found it as well, and just getting a sense of what they're building and what their vision is, which was super cool.
Mm.
And I needed a few days of recovery because I really felt emotionally very just like, my body's really saying, hey, don't do this anymore. I'm not warning you anymore. I'm just giving you the reactions now. And then I went to Mexico City, hung out with some lovely friends, saw some old friends, hung out with friends I'd met at Foster, which was beautiful. And then I went to Costa Rica, where I've spent the majority of this year up until this point, and was in a few different parts of Costa Rica, and that was for a work project. So I went to Costa Rica for work and was there with some friends who I was working with, and then ended up, my intention was not to do a retreat. I'm going to tell you that, Simon. I'm going to tell you that. No intention to do a retreat. My
You know,
friends were
this sounds so familiar. There's this famous German quote which says, "We have no intention to build a wall." Well,
I feel like in Berlin, it's like I had no intention to party, and yet here I
yeah.
am.
Yes, I had no intention
It's
to be wide
absolutely right.
awake with pupils like this at 7 in the morning with no
It
bed
wasn't
in
like
sight. But here we are. Okay, so no intention to do a retreat. Curious what happens next.
so I really went with just entirely the intention of working. Like I'd had a lot of social time. I felt kind of socially just, it was beautiful. I was done. I was like, I kind of want to introvert and like make things basically. And I want to make things with these friends that I've been making with. And we had some ideas that we wanted to experiment with. And one was like, what does it look like to run these venture cycles that my friend's studio had been running remotely with founders, with entrepreneurs? What would it look like if we ran those in person and kind of ran it in a setting that had the beautiful parts of the retreat experience, right? Not the like let's kind of like emotionally dig, but we curated the space, and we had practices put into place where we're waking up in the morning together, and we're moving together, and we're breathing together, and we're kind of quite mindful of what we're eating and curating that, and then we're coming and doing work together, and kind of giving a lot of thought to the overall container. And as you said, like I've been in a lot of communities and retreat spaces, and so I had my friends, and so it felt natural that we would pull from that since we were doing it anyway. And so we had this intention of let's be together in person and let's work together in person. And it happened that two of those friends were doing a 30-day retreat in a very beautiful, really interesting, like regenerative community experiment slash hospitality space, which I still struggle to find a concise way to describe it. And as we got closer to it, they were like, hey, just do this with us. It just makes sense. Let's just do it together. This is the retreat, and we can do the work within the container of the retreat. And I was like, I don't know, it sounds pretty intense because it was called the Warrior's Journey. And I'm like, I just
Yeah.
not, my warrior days are behind me. I've retired as a warrior. Did a lot of warrioring. I'm really vibing with, the kind of want to be a jellyfish, or maybe a starfish. Like that's more of the vibe. And they're persuasive, and I wanted to do the project. And so as we got closer to it, I think it was three or 4 days before the retreat is when I was like, okay, I'll do it. And then I ended up doing that. Also moving around a bunch of Costa Rica and having a mix of beautiful experiences. We did Envision Festival together. We did a lot of driving. around all of Costa Rica, which is beautiful. And also we were laughing 'cause, like we've driven between the same like 4 places an insane number of hours, just like back, forth, back, forth, back, forth across. And then yeah, did that retreat, which ended up, it's a whole different story we can get into, but let's just say did it, had a very challenging and in some ways very beautiful experience. And then I was pretty Costa Rican apt. I found it beautiful, quite challenging. It's very North Americanized and just kind of the really not what I expected. I think Costa Rica gets a lot of hype. And I really, the more and more I spoke to people, and kind of heard their theories for that, why that was. I kind of wondered if it was because it's quite an accessible place for North Americans to travel to, as like a first travel experience. And so there's a lot of hype, but it doesn't necessarily um, it doesn't necessarily deliver on that hype unless you're out in the jungle or in very specific places. I felt just a bit. I was done, and then I finished off with a friend in Colombia, which was really beautiful. Actually, very 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 much loved it, and then headed to Spain, and now I'm here in the UK.
Amazing.
Thank you
Amazing.
for listening so patiently.
Of course. No, it's good to hear. And it's, we can talk just about things, but I always like to talk about the movement. I feel like, okay, now I can perceive a little bit better where you've been, where you're from. There's a good, I think, where do you come from, where do you go is always a good attunement practice.
I think so too.
Yeah, so it's good to know. And yeah, I love the movies in my head. Like I can, I've saw some movies on my phone from your travels, so that you had to get up very early because you were a warrior.
Was
Indeed,
warrior.
right? Wasn't it an early bird situation?
I woke up at 4:30 every day for a month to start at 5 a.m. and I by the end I was really vibing with it. I can't lie. Like by the end I actually really enjoyed it. I think 4:30 is just unnecessary. Like I had to wake up at 4:30 so that, I'd sometimes do a cheeky 4:45 so that I could like get up, shower, get ready and head to the shala where we'd start off our sits and meditations together every day. But like the kickoff time for the daily schedule was 5 a.m. And 4:30 is, I would say for me, not good because no matter what I did and how hard I tried, I just wasn't getting enough sleep. Like I'd head at like 7:30, I'd be like, bye everybody, I'm gonna go to bed. And I'd like lay in bed, which I've never done in my life before. The earliest I've ever slept has been the last like 3-4 months of my life. Like lay in bed at 7:30. And then honestly, somebody would like walk past my room and be like, hey Nibras, and I'm like, no, no, I need to sleep. And then
I'm
I'll sit
asleep.
down. I'll like lay down and they'll be having an event like outside, like 10 minutes from where I'm sleeping, and there's somebody DJing, and I'm like, oh wow, this is, hey, am I, and at one point I remember getting up at 8:45 p.m. and like walking to the DJ booth. And she was so nice as well. She was so lovely and so excited about her set. And I was like, hey, I'm so sorry to be a vibe kill. I'm gonna be up at 4:30. Can we wrap this up? And she just looked at me like, I'm gonna finish at 9:15 p.m. Like you can wait till 9:15. And it's like I really don't know if I can. I need that sleep. I
Yeah.
need that sleep. So I think 4:30 sleep deprivation. But
That's why it's
I
called. That's why it's called a warrior retreat, because you turn into like somebody who just starts fighting people at 8:45 because you need that sleep. That's what they don't tell you, but that's what it's actually about. It's like. Sorry.
you do. You start fighting for the sleep is true. It's definitely true. But yeah, it's really given me honestly much more of an appreciation for early birds and waking up super early than I've ever had. And like right now, like a 6:30 to 6 feels very nice, which it would have never before at any point in my life because I realized I could have just a time. Like I'd be by 11 a.m. I'm like, wow, I've really lived a day. And then like the second day would begin, I'd be like, wow, another day.
Wow, I
So
know.
it's quite fun.
Such a blessing, such a rare. Yeah, I always have it. I remember like jet lag days, uh, kind of the morning after flying into San Francisco from London, and then you're kind of, I don't know. We had enough time zone math today, so I'm not gonna get into it. But basically, I wake up really early, and it's like pre-sunset, and I'll just be like, you're awake like this, and then I'm just gonna go pre-sun rise, and then
Rising.
just get up and like
Again, my
walk
brain
the streets,
autocorrected.
and then go to like the top of the snaky road or something. I forget what it's called. And like there's this famous snaky road in San Francisco.
Mm.
Forget what it's called. And or like just over a hill, over a hill, over a hill, and at some point you're like at this really top type of hill, and then the sun comes up, and I am like,
Oh,
ooh, baby, that's
it's
nice.
beautiful.
And just yeah, exactly this time of the morning. Yeah, there's a little early bird inside of me as well, but um, yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, it's you've talked about this to me, and I guess it was something I was curious about. You were like, Simon, I don't know what's going on. No matter what I do, I end up in some sort of community that is doing some sort of crazy intense thing. But all I really want to do is just sit with my work and
Yeah.
get something done. And you kind of said it in your story now as well, that you were like um, looking to just do some work or whatever. So how do you feel about this at this point? Maybe we can also talk about what your work is. Just curious about it. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd also love to, it's the nature of the format, but it's a bit of a one-sided conversation right now, right? Because you're doing the beautiful space holding and the asking. But yeah, I'm also very curious what you've been up to and what's been happening and what's been alive. And so
uh,
I can answer or I can hold the question and also, yeah, just hear from you what's been going on since early January.
uh. Yeah, yeah, no, motion denied. Let me ask you this, and then let's go into. I'll say something. Don't worry, but I want to. I think if we talk about work, and I also have some notes. I think you've been tweeting a lot of good stuff, and I want to talk to you about it. And then
Sure.
I'll chime in with some stuff, and it will give a little story back to it. But I don't want to go into. I've told my story to a lot of people a lot recently, and I'm kind of tired of it. I'm just like, no, let's go for it. I want to hear. I need some. But I'll tell you something. So, but
Sure.
if you would indulge me, um,
Of course.
the question about how you feel about being with people. Are you getting any work done? And what's your work? I think we never really get the chance. I kind of have an approximation,
Hmm.
but I'm curious what you're looking at right now. And to that, I'll definitely answer with my stuff as well. So,
Awesome. Awesome. So as in terms of being with people, we joked about it a lot and played around with it a lot. And I think whenever there's such a gap between explicit desire and action, like the conclusion that I reach is there's stuff going on under the surface that for whatever reason I don't have the capacity to be conscious of. But if I'm constantly like, hey, I want to be alone and I want to just like introvert pretty hard, and yet I inevitably am in spaces of like 14 plus people, 14 to 20, something's going on. Something in me wants to be in those spaces, or there's something happening there. There's something that's pulling me there. Um, and I think in a lot of ways, I feel like pretty at peace with that right now, and pretty just somewhat surrendered to it, and somewhat interested in just seeing how things play out, and also becoming more sensitive and more aware of when I'm at capacity, like we've been talking about. So really noticing, and I think the last few months there have been some like really beautiful just learnings around that, but kind of seeing, oh wow, the when I'm verbalizing that I want to be alone, it's quite deep overstimulation that's going on. And when I'm saying like I don't want anything to do with people anymore. I'm kind of also at my emotional and social capacity, and really starting to see all the ways that I am with people that kind of lead to this battery drain. And also just starting to see that like a lot of my system's self-cleansing processes happen when I'm alone. And a lot of my regulation happens when I'm alone. And just starting to see like, oh, I need to bake in time every day where I'm not near anybody else and no one's talking to me. And honestly, nobody's even sitting next to me. And my mind and body can really have the space to be entirely unfiltered. And I think before I had this battle with self where I was like, no, I should be unfiltered in all environments, regardless of who's there. I should be fully myself. And I'm just going to keep putting myself in these spaces so that I am just myself. I have no option or choice but to be. And more and more I feel, yeah, more and more I feel like, you know what, like kind of slightly rough. And it's just a slightly rough way of treating yourself. And like, it's okay if there are filters that kick into place that I don't really have conscious control of. And you know what, Nibras, I'll give you the space to be entirely alone and like stare at the ceiling or stare at the tree and just kind of regulate yourself in the ways that you need to. So, yeah, to answer your question more directly, I think I feel a lot more chill about it. And I think surprisingly, I've gotten better at creating those spaces and creating time to be alone. And like, example, I'm here at home. And usually when I'm at home with my family, there's a lot of kind of pressure and guilt that I put on myself to spend a lot of time with them and to like be present and visible as much as possible. And this time around, I was like, oh, there's a co-working space. And I can just book it. And I can just go to the co-working space to work and also to just like sit alone in a meeting room by myself and like have no chance of anybody walking in and interacting with me. And so starting to move in those directions. And still there's a like a growing desire for more stillness and more space. And I think a growing ability to provide that. Let's see. Maybe we can check in half a year and you can laugh at me about it.
Yeah, oh man, but this is so good. It's I have a lot of these feelings as well.
Mm,
Uh, I was kind of course, checking against your story while you were telling it about like this retreat, and I was like, just 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 nobody's gonna tell me to get up at 4:30 every day, not even as like a fucking game. Like I know this creature here, and he's
mm,
gonna he's gonna do it for 3 days for the lulz, and then kind of be like, but no, like no, just no. I
mm.
mean, whatever your little fantasy is, Mr. Cult, I mean, retreat leader, um, or Mrs. This is not, I'm not gonna, I shall be no part of it.
Yeah.
And, um, knowing this ahead of time, I'm very curious how, like, I'm going to jazz camp and Micro Solidarity summer camp right after.
Mm. Wow,
And I was
beautiful.
going to Vibe Camp, which I canceled. And so here's a class in my personal, just most recent class in kind of managing whatever this is. You called it kind of, I think, space and also time. Class in managing space and time. It was so interesting. I had this, I bought a Vibe Camp ticket in February or something. Ananta told me or she and Chris were going. And I was like in Medley, and I was like, hooray, great idea, going to America, right? So I was like, yeah, I'll just do that. And there was a voice inside of me that was like, but Simon, you don't know where you will be in May, the month before June, in which Vibe Camp takes place. You don't know if you're still gonna want to go. And I'm like, yeah, but fuck it, like how will it work if we have an intention early enough and we just kind of book it and then try to book it, and then the other was like, fine, try it, So I did that and like bought Jazz Camp right after as well. lots of fucking money. I was like,
Commitment.
fuck it, you know.
Yeah.
I want to like, I enjoyed the meeting of people that's been happening since Medley in Berlin and around it, and just kind of this gravitational field of TPOT and Twitter people, and it's just so great. My life's so much better. It's like so
Mm.
enriched with all these nerds, you know, all these fellow nerds, where you're like talking about, I met somebody the other day, and I was like, oh, did you? She was the girlfriend of somebody I had just met via Crystal from Interintellect, like kind of this, you know. Oh, everybody's here. What stuff happening?
Yeah.
And she had a camera, and she was like, within like 5 sentences, she had used the vernacular. She said bits and bobs, and she said 1,000 whistles, and she was German, and I was like, excuse me, miss, are you from the internet? And she was like, I am actually. I've grown up on Reddit Road 3. And I'm like, no way.
Wow.
Me too, right next to Tim Ferriss Lane, you know? And wow, what a great feeling to meet internet people.
Mm.
For me, I mean, our thing when we did the other podcast that's somewhere in the archives, and we got into this whole Tim Ferriss thing and blah, blah, and I was like, oh, you and me both? And with Brent as well, it's just so crazy to me that this can exist.
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
Absolutely. I was very curious about, I wanted to ask you earlier, yeah, the like community that's springing up in Berlin and more people, it sounds like, are landing in Berlin. I'm just so curious how that is and how it's playing out and how
Mm.
you're finding it.
Yeah, definitely a big part of my year right now, especially now
Mm.
since May. As we know, the seasonal energy of May is a very
Mm.
pure one, very clean, can't do wrong. Sun is just the right height, not the burning sun of June and July, but kind of just not quite
Mm.
spring anymore, just about summer, early summer. And so my apartment is in shambles here because I'm just outside, and my body is maybe in a little bit of a shamble because I'm drinking a lot of beer and smoking, and I'm just like enjoying life, you know. And that's and there are a lot of internet people here, um, that are kind of coming through, and the connections just happen naturally. And so
Beautiful.
I've been yearning so much for community. Actually, I don't know if you know that, but Medley was a big fresh thing for me.
I remember.
Yeah, to put myself in the midst of people again, feeling like it might be a good time and it might not overwhelm me.
Mm.
So we're very much still on topic for what you were talking about, what I was also answering to. And um, and now I've just been yearning, feeling like, oh, I want to be way more active, also collecting people around me. I've had a lot of walls up, like voluntary and involuntary ones around that, feeling very inadequate, feeling very low permission to really hadn't figured out the social game that I want to play. I'm getting a lot closer to figuring out, or I am very much in the process of figuring it out. And well, one great thing is to just have people around. And one great thing I noticed too about myself is that I love to meet new people.
Mm.
Because I think the need pillar or meter for ride or dies is like pretty well filled for me, because I've got, like a very undeniable and very well decentralized crew
Mm.
with Louis and Paul and Zebby and Phil here in Berlin, like just people that are my brothers pretty much,
Yeah.
which is something I had always had a lot of fear around.
Mm.
That well, I could be ostracized from somewhere, or I could make mistakes, and then people wouldn't like me. But I need a base, I'm a tree. I need that home base. And so I think that's been filled and cultivated a lot. So now there's like this, okay, well, where do we play from here? Well, and the presence in Berlin, and whether it's like the wider kind of hippie type community, or kind of more specific internet people, whether it's people that are traveling through for a week, or traveling through for a month or 3, or are moving here. And there's a lot of movement like that. And I'm just keen to meet a lot of people, and I'm doing that. And, like Brent and Helena kind of coming back, and it's like, has a great kind of quality to it. Like I said to them yesterday, there's an episodicness in this, we had this big medley movie episode. And now you're here again, and wow, like the show goes on. How cool is that? I'm so used to kind of traveling and seeing people like one off, or but to return, or to have people return, is like, damn, that's so tasty.
It's beautiful. Does your life have this quality to it as if you're living through a scripted film or TV show? Like, do you more and more get the sense that you're in a Truman Show, or no?
All the time, Nibras.
Yeah.
All the time. Life's
But
life's
to a
been
level
a
that's
movie.
eerie now. Like, really to a level where I'm like, I hope whoever's watching and whatever is
Yeah.
watching is enjoying it,
Like,
because yeah.
hello. Like, yeah, sorry, I'm changing. Excuse me. If you mind, Oh my God. So how do you feel that? How is that? What are the moments where you?
Well, here's the thing. You're a great returner of the microphone, and I see and I acknowledge the skill in that question. And what brings it up for me is
Yeah.
when I hear you, when you talk about the episodic nature of people coming back to
Yeah.
Berlin, like the medley chapter, and I really have that sense. Sometimes I'm like, this is like, if this was a reality TV show, it would pop. It really would pop. Honestly, truly, well and truly, and I get that sense as well, and I feel it happening, and I talk to friends about it, and I see it, and when I see what's going on in Berlin and a lot of Portugal and just a lot of Europe, but really it kind of feels like everywhere it's a feeling that we carry with us from space to space, environment to environment, and so I hear it as well as you tell this story. I'm like, here we go again. It's season 2. The script continues.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I also felt really strongly, I was on this trip to Eastern Europe. I'm sure I told you a little bit about it in 21. And when you're on this kind of, oh man, okay, I see where this is going. When you're on this kind of discovery trip, and you're like kind of, I was in places and I wanted something. I had like a little mission. I had a little quest, the LARP, the video game of life kind of. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna try to find a contact here who can, I don't know. And then I have this little story where I went to Bistrița in Romania, where my family is from, around that place. And I had a goal, and my goal was to go to the villages where my grandma and my grandpa grew up, and I had the address of my grandpa's house and stuff. And then I went there, and first I met like like one of the guys who have this association of Germans in Romania, or in that town, and he was a real he was a really he was half dead already. I don't know if there's a nicer way to say that. It was like an older guy, and he was already quite asleep, and like kind of not so alive anymore, not so. But then I met like his assistant, and he was like younger, and he was like, "Yo, cool that you're here. I'll show you around." I'm like, "Great, okay." Like first thing, guided tour, and it's like, that's a movie. You come to a city, and you're like, "Hello, can anybody?" And somebody's like, "Yeah, right this way, sir." And then you get a little tour, and this is the church, and the priest is an asshole, but the son is all right, but he's moving to another town. You get this, and I'm like, okay, 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 okay. But then I was like, I want to go to these villages, and the same day I'm way too tired, got up way too early, go to this pizzeria to have pizza at like 11:50 a.m., you know, which is a bit against my ethos, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. And there's this kid, and he's like, "Who are you? Are you a writer?" And I'm like, "Not bad, you know," because I was
Mm.
looking the hat and stuff. And 2 days later, I asked him, "Hey, kid, I need a translator. We kind of know each other. Um, can you come with me in my car to these villages? Because as soon as I'm there, people are gonna group around me because I'm a novelty, and they want to know what I'm about, and I want to talk to them." And he's like, "Sorry, sir, but I don't know you. How do I know that you're not going to leave me there?" And I'm like, "You're right. Here are some credentials." And it's like, "Okay, I think I
Yeah.
trust you, you know, kid,
Wow.
15,
Okay.
16." And
Yeah.
then we went together, and we had like
Mhm.
another episode. Like, we're in a village. And so this whole trip is just, you know, with this, when you have this thing in you, you want something, which sometimes I struggle with, but there it was, luckily, like there was a container for it. And then the classic universe aligning, like you can just make things happen. And it's also the ability, I think, that we've, I think, both cultivated a little bit to speak to whomever, right? I know you worked on that in your early life, that you can't speak, you want to speak. Me too, because then you can actually unlock many adventures.
100%.
And this trip was just a little episode from many episodes from this
Mhm.
one big movie series of this Eastern
Mm.
Europe trip.
Mm.
And there, when I told the story back to Lucas, my brother, and I told it to him in like 2 evenings, 4 hours each, and I have the full story on record as well. I should
4
find it.
hours each. Wow.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And he
Wow.
was like, we were tripping after. He was like, "I can see everything clearly in my head," and I'm like, "I know,
Mhm.
and I swear to you, everything happened like I say it." And it's
Yeah.
that, and then I was like, "Life's a movie," and then it never really stopped. For me, when you're open and you're going somewhere and you're kind of like, you're not on rails, but you're kind of like, or like you're playing a bit. Oh my God, the darndest things happen.
I definitely do. And I think if you have a sense of trust and yeah, just like, yeah, trust and openness. And I think we exist in bubbles. I definitely exist in bubbles of pretty high trust, high openness people. And so every once in a while, I'll kind of step outside of that bubble and I'll realize, like, oh, okay, if you don't trust other people, which maybe is a very sensible thing to do, but we're not here living sensible lives. But if you don't, a lot of this wacky stuff doesn't happen to you because, the stranger on the road says, like, hey, can I ask a question? And you go, no. And you walk on, right? Whereas they're like, hey, can I ask a question? And we're like, yeah, but can I ask you one in return? Like, how is this going to work? And then that leads to, yeah, all of these unfoldings. And so I hear in what you're saying, I hear that your theory is if you are going somewhere with a goal and a mission, then that kind of goal or mission creates the story like quality because everything starts to almost like direct or push you towards that goal. Did I understand that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and you made a lovely tweet. I think you've been really tweeting some big bangers. I've
Thanks.
been really enjoying reading you, and I can sense this activity from you, that you're thinking a lot. That's why I thought it was a great time to talk. And one of your
Thank you. I've
tweets,
been reconciling my relationship with Twitter. So
yeah,
thank you. I'm glad
yeah,
to hear that.
yeah, 5K too, big five. Um, Number go up, baby, number go up. You made a great tweet just the other day, and it was, "Every human is a portal to another dimension." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Girl, I know." And this is, in sometimes that was the reason, me, a little poor, sensitive, bearded 6'3" man, uh,
The most sensitive always. Always the most
Always
sensitive.
the most.
Truly, once you get through the layers, the softest for sure.
The softest. That's something I've been coming to terms with, how soft I really am. And this, I have exactly the softness, this openness. I walk the street. I have such a curious eye, as I'm sure you know, and I look at
Yeah.
people all the time, and I look people in the eye, and I look, and you know, this kind of soul hygiene that monks practice, and so they don't hug you, they don't look at you, because they're like this, they want to be with themselves. And for
Mm,
me, this is the rush of life, other people and their stories and whatnot. But at the same time, when I'm on rails a bit and in a date, I'm like, I wish to not be interrupted, and I've gone in a weird tension from I wish to
mm,
not be interrupted to I'm dying to talk to you, strange man or woman on the streets. Who are you? What is it? How do you experience life? Please give me a slice.
mm,
Very annoying tension, and that's currently what's happening to me. It's like that I'm like letting that. I'm like, oh no, no, but this is really what life is for me. And you go
mm,
on a journey, on a holiday,
mm,
and in this, okay, this is not living right now, like this is not, and there you can kind of open yourself up to that.
mm.
But I want to live like this as much as possible every day. And things that come to me now that I'm thinking about is like small talk, good, right? I was cleaning my car a bit this morning, just now before we talked on the streets, and I had a chat with the shopkeeper in my house who runs an Asian bistro. And I had a
Yeah.
chat with the old strange man with the sports jacket on. And he was like, "Huh? Early work?" And I'm like, "Yeah, shitty work. Cleaning my pollinated car, full of pollen dust and bird shit." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, sucks to park under a tree." And I'm like, "Damn right, sir. Really sucks." And like really embracing the small. It was just great being on the street.
Mm,
And then the
mm,
same with like learning to, how can one meet people? How can one, well, you just make up excuses. I'm having a party. We're doing a retreat. Let's have dinner. These are just I don't know, I'm seeing through the matrix somewhere in Nibras. Maybe I
yeah.
sound a bit simple and stupid, but for me, there's a whole new
Yeah.
world opening up that I've always longed for. That's what my year is about right now.
What is it that you're seeing? When you say you're seeing through the matrix, and maybe it sounds simple and there's this whole other world opening up, I sense in that like goodness and gold, because I think when you're reconfronted with what some part of you sees as obvious is probably when you're hitting on what's really useful for a lot of other people. So like what are the things that you're seeing there? One of them is small talk is good, and I agree, small talk is great. Um, And then, yeah, what else is there? Okay, small talk is good. Interactions with other and kind of allowing the chaos of reality to interrupt your predetermined path or plan is great if you can allow it to be. But yeah, what else is coming up for you?
Small talk, good. Interruption, good. Also, some Lucas wisdom, by the way, who's
Mm-hmm.
teaching me, my young 21-year-old brother with a whole nother zest for life.
Yes, and
Getting
banter for days. I
banter
aspire.
for
I aspire to
days.
one day be as funny as Lucas. I'm not sure this lifetime's when it'll happen, but I aspire to it.
He will be delighted to hear it. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, we are quite funny. Lucas always says to me, I'm like, "Lucas, comedy. There's something we should maybe do some comedy, or maybe you should do some comedy, or whatever." And then one time we just went to see a comedy show, and it was just so boring, except for one act who was really outrageous. And Lucas always says, "Yeah, why would I go watch a movie? Why would I go see some comedy? I'm way funnier than all of these motherfuckers. Like, why do people go there? Because they want to be entertained, but I'm right here." Oh, this
People
guy.
need access to you, though. People need permission to laugh with you, laugh at you. And a comedy show is the perfect container for that, right? I
That's
don't
right.
have to do the dance, the scary dance of trying to become friends with you. I can just come and I know I'm allowed to laugh with you and to interact with you. So I don't know, maybe we set up pop-up comedy shows, but really it's just like it's okay to talk to me shows.
Exactly. And that's what we're talking about. So small talk good, interruption good, uh, make excuse to be with people. Like
Mm,
Roland and I started a little men's circle here.
beautiful.
6 dudes, 4 to 6, selected, of course, from our friends, coming together, and then with a little bit of intention, with a little bit of our own facilitation, having some dope, vulnerable conversations right here.
Beautiful.
Why? Well, because we didn't say we want to. Can we meet today, the 6 of you, to have a vulnerable conversation? But we said on Wednesday, every 2 weeks, there's men's circle.
Mm,
Now that's a difference, you know. There's now you're putting a stake in the ground, and I always had a disdain for it, a judgment. I always feel like these. Excuse me.
how come? Sorry to interrupt you. I'm curious
Uh,
what the judgment used to be.
no, it's like I, I always wanted things raw and real, and it's
Mm,
like I always felt like, yeah, but this is contrived. Okay, but contrivance good, you know? Like make up an arbitrary goal. Why not? It's like that's how shit works. Like the uh are you just digging a hole in the sand, or are you building a canal to collect some water, you know?
mm,
And then okay, now you have a game and you can kind of win it, and it has a
mm,
and it's just fun, you know? And I think for some reason I've been keeping myself from fun. I've been procrastinating doing this podcast for 4 years, that's for sure.
mm,
And as we know, as you know, as I know about each other, camera, mic, inevitable best friends of us.
mm.
I got it. I realized I want to be on stage, and I want to be with a lot of people. Well, podcast, great excuse mechanism for that.
Absolutely.
Um, Making stuff up that happens at my home, great excuse mechanism. Having a workshop, great excuse mechanism for having a thing where I can talk as much as I want and then also do something nice for, like, unbelievable. That's what's possible when you just align some parameters. And I've really
Absolutely.
gone from the judgment of, oh, that's contrived, but I want a real thing, and I've had through this filter of being mad at contrivance and just wanting a real thing, I had incredible encounters that were undeniably real with people who are some of my best friends right now, where I'm like, no, okay, so we don't need, we can, where you can just say, let's be together for no reason. Like
Yeah.
we need to see each other. Where the clock starts ticking when you don't see each other for a while. We need to see each other.
Mm,
And that's like quite devoid of contrivance. But then again, some of my best friends I'm working with, and we have the contrivance of having a shared project. So really
absolutely.
letting these boundaries dissolve and letting judgment pass of, yeah. And I'm becoming softer that way and being like, oh no, this is actually great. What on you? I don't know.
It's
I don't know
really,
what was wrong with me, Nibras, but things are getting a bit easier.
I get it. I get it. I get it. It's beautiful. I feel like so many of my friends are flowering right now, and I really like it. It's very exciting. There's
So,
like
so many of your friends are flowering?
they're flowering. Yeah, there's like this wave sweeping of just people stepping into, for a lack of a less cliched saying, like stepping into their power. And stepping into their power is like stepping into their expressiveness, and just being like, okay, here are the headshots. I'm going to start doing the talks. Here are the videos of me that go out here. Here are the retreats that I'm going to hold. Here are the workshops that I'm going to hold. And I see it around me as I'm looking around, and it's super beautiful to see. It's so incredible, and it feels like it's like a dropping of fear. Like fear is just falling off people. And there's a sense of like, no, this thing that I want to do, this way that I am, for some reason I'm just now at a place where I can do it, and let's start doing it. And I think it's still like, you say, okay, you've been procrastinating on the podcast. It's like, yeah, well, that makes so much sense. It's scary. There's so much that's unpredictable. There's so much that can feel at stake for the mind, at least for my mind. And some way, somehow, you're here and you're doing it now, and I'm seeing this a lot around me, and it's like deeply exciting. It feels deeply good, and it's like, yeah, you deserve good. Good things should happen to you. I'm glad they're happening. You're making them happen, and so it's beautiful to see. And I also don't doubt. Maybe I'm projecting, but I don't doubt that it's a little bit scary to do the podcast, and it's a little bit scary to do the things. There's still this element of dancing with what's new and what's uncomfortable, and there's a development of skill. Like, there are so many skills that your being has to develop so that you're in a space where you do these things comfortably, and you know how to be with people in even more comfortable ways and ever more comfortable ways. So also kudos to you for doing that. I think it can be internally much harder than it looks on the outside.
Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
thank you. And actually, that was another note I had on the topic, which is I think there's a through line from various metaphors I've used in recent times, which is kind of lowering of the guard, taking off armor.
Mm-hmm.
What is the word for judgment? You're ceasing judgment? No, there's a word for that. I don't know. Well, you
Ceasing.
ceasing.
Yeah, ceasing, I guess, stopping judgment, yeah.
Yeah. You're
Ceasing
basically
judgment.
letting judgment dissolve. That's what it feels
Mm-hmm.
like. So it's always it's basically this lowering of the guard. Well, and below the crustacean's shell is soft underbelly, softness.
Tenderness, yeah.
This is literal. I have a bit of a belly, which is always like a bodily. I'm a thin man, so it's like a bit out of place.
I get
But
it.
there are good reasons that I have it, which is like beer and chocolate. It's a belly of joy and
Yeah,
butter,
yeah.
and kind of always a bit tensed up about it, like kind of like trying to be a bit, strong man, looking good, flat, huh? Letting it go much more, walking around in this little shirt, what I mean, like, and so there's a whole like through line, metaphorically, physically, it's all there
Yes.
to tenderness.
Yeah.
And well, but what is all this? Oh, and one more metaphor was the tension that I described between wanting to speak to everybody and feeling utterly overwhelmed.
I really relate to that, yeah.
For me, the metaphor for that was always a glass pane, a sheet of glass. So I'm like, ding ding, looking through it, but nobody can hear me. And it's like, such a pain. A pain. Sorry, a pain. It pains me. This pain of glass. It has pained me so much. I'm literally walking through Berlin on a Sunday or whatever, and I want to be with the people, but I'm not. And I'm like, why? What is going on? And so, great. Yeah, realizing that is all the same, and that it needs a lowering of the guard. And of course, you have two wise compagnons, two cats that I've read about.
Yeah.
And one has her guard up and the other one doesn't.
Yes.
So please tell me how that relates to that.
I would love to. I'm also wondering if a toilet break would be possible, because I've
Of
been
course.
hydrating a lot, so I really need to run to the toilet.
Do you want to know? Yeah, yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And
Go.
then I trust in the magic of cutting out and editing together.
No worries.
All right, thank you. I have returned. Oh, Simon! Simon, hold up your book! Hold it up, hold it up, hold it up,
You what?
hold up your book.
Hold up my.
The book.
Oh yeah. Look, if you hold it really to the camera, it's gonna look like two eyes. Hello,
Yeah.
googly.
it really, what is this cover? Like, I have been debating the princessiness of just being like, can I just get a different copy, please?
You
Because
can. Please
it's
do.
taking a lot. What is going on here? What is it?
This cover is an unbelievably beautiful work of art, and
It is. I
your
agree.
misprint might make it more valuable later at a time, but I know it hurts your eye.
I know my sister was saying the same. She's like, well, Nibras, you would say that it makes it more unique, and so you should keep it. And I was like, I don't like what I say. What a well aligned.
The aesthetics, though.
So, Simon, you asked me a question that makes me very happy because I wrote a little Twitter thread about our family cats. Um, and I keep just like before I go to sleep every night, I lay down and I'm like, wow, I'm so glad I wrote that. I think that's the most satisfying, beautiful thing I've written in literally like a year. And I just feel such inner joy at this little thread that yeah, I'm very, very happy and very excited to talk about it. And so
Please
here's
do.
the other thing. Since I've written the thread, the most unexpected, comically script-like thing has happened, which is why I keep saying this is the Truman Show. My cat, the moody cat, who's called Yoshi, has just like rebranded overnight. It's the whole family is taken aback. Since I've written this thread, I don't know if Yoshi has Twitter and she read the thread and now she's just got a bit more self-awareness. She's been walking in anytime she sees me, anytime she sees anybody else, and purring. And she comes and she'll naturally just kind of put herself against my leg. And actually, in the picture that I have with this book, with the creative act, it's Yoshi reading, the moody cat, not the social cat. And every single day since I've written that thread, she sat on my lap and purred and asked me to stroke her and has, okay, she's attempted to scratch me twice, but that's significantly less than ever before. So it's just, I don't know what's going on, but I think it's pretty incredible, and I've been very excited about it.
That's amazing. No, that's
Yes.
amazing. That's like me when somebody says to me, "Well, you're a person who likes sweets, right?" And we're like,
Mm.
"You think you know something about me?" Well, I don't think so. And then I'm just going to do the opposite. And but how does she know? You must have like that's Twitter, baby, right? You like altered the energy around it somehow. It's like
It's been amazing. We're laughing. My entire family's laughing. Like my little brother's like, what is going on? And I'm like, what is going on? Why is she so demanding of love all of a sudden and so open to it as well? So open to it.
you put a
But yeah, I
spell on
wanted
her.
to tell you that I feel though that you had a question
The question
about this
the
thread
question
specifically.
was the whole bit I was on. And by the way, I'm going to do a little side note, which is you call me a gracious passer of the mic, but I did a big laugh earlier because I already knew what was going to happen. I already knew. That's a little, I like that. I mean, it's like, yes, yes, I will answer your question, but first, let me ask you something. And then you get me
Yeah.
talking for an hour. Yeah,
Well, you,
when
you
I,
said beautiful things, and I had the joy of hearing you talking. I am aware of it, and I'm ever more aware of it that I do this. And I was laughing as I walked to the bathroom because I was thinking conversations are the experience of having a conversation is somewhat incomprehensible and just like incompletable to me because every single three like every sentence you said and every three sentences you said to me that was a portal appears right a portal into an entirely different world. And as you're talking, I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna forget about this portal. And it's like we're moving along. And I'm like, oh no, but this one
no,
just
no,
fell
no.
out. What are you okay? And it just keeps happening. And it's like, oh, there's so much richness that we can explore in what you just said. And it's not, I think sometimes I get accused a fair bit of like not wanting to be open or wanting to kind of get the other person to talk. And maybe that's going on, not consciously though. I think it's
I
more
know.
just like, wow, I want to understand how this shift has happened. And I want to know what that judgment was. And hey, I want to see what are some, like, there's just so much richness that can be dove into. And yet we kind of can't without constantly interrupting each other and actually breaking the very flow that makes a conversation beautiful. So for me, that's one of the tensions that I always hold is allowing space and letting somebody complete versus being like, oh, let's double click. Actually, I just want to double do. This is very interesting what you just said.
You can always interrupt me, and it's so good. And I'm such a sucker for it too. I mean, we've had many conversations, and I'm always like, I'll just talk then. Why not?
You're fine. I'll take the mic then. Okay, all of a
You're
sudden.
passer of the mic and taker of the mic. The question was, how do your cats and the duality, maybe not so duality anymore, of your cats relate to what I talked about lowering the armor? Because your thing was
Yeah.
also about boundaries. And
Yes.
that was my question.
Yeah. So the lowering of the armor and softness I relate to, and I relate to it in many ways. I think I'll come back to your question. There's something in what you said, the belly and the softness of the belly, right? And like allowing the softness to me speaks of comfort and actually growing self-confidence and growing comfort in itself. And just getting to this place of like, okay, like this is how reality is showing up right now, and reality includes my body in the ways that I am, right? And like that's fine. I can be stressed and like upset about it and tensing and fighting against it, or I can just say, this is what it is, and let's see where that goes. And I think there's a physical softness that happens that also reflects this internal softness. And I think I just relate on so many levels to that happening. And I also think it's worth acknowledging that like the thing about becoming softer is it's also this increased sensitivity and increased vulnerability. And vulnerability is a state. Like there's a reason we've had such hype cycles about vulnerability for the last few years, because it's really scary to be vulnerable. And so there's also this growing capacity for feeling a lot more, for me, like exposed to the elements of life and of the world, right? Because when you relax and you're not tensing your body or your belly, it's kind of much easier for something to pierce it, right? And so there's also just holding that knowing and like holding, for me, a growing capacity to kind of actually just be okay with the piercing and the consequences of it, right? Like I have slightly more tools in my medical toolkit or first aid kit here, and if some piercing does happen, I can clean it and plaster it, and maybe I couldn't do that before. So I wanted to say that, or that felt like it wanted to be said. And then how the cat's tied to that metaphor and boundaries. Boundaries is an interesting word that I struggle with. So even when I was writing, I was like, oh, I wish I had something else here, but I don't. It kind of does the job. I see, so we have two cats, or really my family has two cats, and I see them every few months or once or twice a year, and I love them both. And Humbush is the epitome of softness, I think. He's just met, like even talking about him, I can literally feel my body physically responding with love. Like I can feel my chest, I can feel like, and it's incredible. And I think he's extreme softness. I'll come to say hello to him, and he'll kind of roll over on his back and be like, "Go ahead and kill me if you want to," like go for it, kill me with love, And so I'll rub his belly and I'll play with him, and he does. I want to say personify, I guess, animalify that softness and that relaxation and that openness to others. And it really kind of has been incredible to see so clearly the ways that people respond to that. Because I think people to people dynamics, there's a lot more complexity and subtlety. People to animal, I really feel in some ways we still have a lot of the same elements of person to person dynamics, but they're just simplified. It's kind of like adult to child dynamics. They're pretty simplified. A lot of the layers and the hiding drops away. And like most adults aren't scared of approaching a cat or hugging a cat or holding a cat, but a lot of adults will have a lot of walls in the way of wanting to express that kind of affection towards another adult. And so it's been, yeah, I'm not sure why my mind has been so captivated by it, but it's very clear that it has been for like a few years now. Every time I see it, I'm like, oh, look at what this level of softness generates in others. And then also look at some of the downsides of it as well, I guess, is what I was feeling into with Homebush. Just like that does he really always enjoy the attention and the affection? If he was human, would he be a little bit better at saying like, hey, if you touch me one more time, I will scratch you. I don't want to have to go there because I'm a very nice, chill cat, but you're gonna make me go there. And so that's all I have in my mind. I think anything else, I'll be stretching to try and make a connection. So I'll just leave it there.
Yeah. I was also mostly thinking of the toolkit, kind of the well, talk to stranger, have that small talk. Don't think you're not gonna marry them, you know? They're just gonna have a little, and when it's like, you can say, okay, have a nice day, sir or madam, you know, and that this is possible, that it's not
It is,
dangerous, that it's not all or nothing.
yeah, it is possible. And also, it's okay that if at some stage it feels like it's all or nothing and it feels dangerous and it feels important, at least if I like reflect back on some of the ways that I've changed and opened up. But like at some points, it did feel like all or nothing, and my body fully responded as if it was all or nothing. Like I would blush and have hot flushes, you know, like thank you God I'm black, so nobody could see that I was like freaking out and turning red, you know. But it was happening. I could hear my heartbeat pulsating in my ears, right? Just at the prospect of, like we've talked about this, saying "How are you" to the cashier while we're having that interaction. And so also just having this knowing and this trust that regardless of what it feels like right now, if some element, some part of you desires for these just kind of easy, fluid, organic interactions with other people, it does happen. And the body's responses do change in the same way that we grow muscle and our body adapts to stretching and to physical strain. Our body also can kind of, at least my body definitely has, and I trust everybody else's, will relax around some of these all or nothing reactions and some of what for me was a lot of fear and a lot of intensity. And it just begins to like, it just melts away. It's very rare nowadays that my body's going to have a bit of a freak out response to a conversation with somebody on the street. It's much more likely that curiosity will arise, and it will just be the most natural thing to follow that curiosity. Because like, hey, where is your hat from? And it's not an excuse. It's I really like actually your hat's great. I think I want that hat. And then we start talking about the hat, and then that can bring into many other things, right? Because you judge based on how the interaction goes as well, right? So yeah, I also feel there's wisdom in what you were saying of doesn't mean you're gonna marry this person. And it's true, it doesn't mean you're gonna marry this person because you actually don't know what this person is like. The only way that you can know what the reality of them, the experience of them is like, is by having those interactions and those conversations. And then like updating your desires like in the moment in response to that,
You
right?
might end up marrying them, you know? You
You
never know.
could. You absolutely, I mean, you absolutely could. And like,
Yeah.
beautiful. Tell me that story as and when it happens. And it's also quite likely that you start speaking and you're like, oh, cool. I realize I projected quite a lot and like we're actually not really vibing. Or even like, hey, I see that you feel very tense about having this interaction with me. And I think for me, a lot more and more, it's like I honestly at this stage, I have the skills to help you untense if that's what you want and to feel very comfortable in this interaction for me. But I would actually much rather just have an interaction with somebody who already feels relaxed having an interaction with me. And I just want that to be our starting basis and to go
Yes.
from there. And so, yeah, it's just like reading a book or watching a film or watching TV or whatever it is, however it is that you like to engage with creations. Like you start reading a book and then you say, huh, what I thought it was. I guess if your relationship to reading is nice and good and healthy, it's like, cool, I don't have to keep reading this. Or much clearer with TV, like, I'm not going to keep watching the show if I don't enjoy it. And yeah, other people are portals into other worlds. We are portals into other worlds. And I guess we could also say we're films or we're TV shows. And so some people are really going to enjoy it and others won't.
God damn right. That's really, really it, I think. The movements are just finer. It's a more fine-tuned little here, left here, right there. And the trust in that ability allows all the armor to go away, and then even enables this kind of fluid motion instead of such
Mm,
a robotic, armored, um, stiff motion. I feel like
yes,
that's what's going on.
absolutely. And it's okay that the armor is there as well. I would say for myself, if I could have conversations with a younger version of me, it would be like, it's fine that the armor is there. The armor is there for good reasons. And the armor is there, I think, because in so many ways we've created a mostly like socially unsafe world. And there's a bit of there's a bit of growing up and leveling up and skilling up to be at a place where it you're capable of navigating the lack of safety in the world and capable of taking care of yourself in it. And so there's actually like when the armor begins to drop, I think it does so from a pretty wise place. Like something in you is wise, something in you knows, and that's why it's keeping the armor there. And you can, for me, it definitely became a case of having a like gentle and reasonable relationship with the guards, with the silversmith that constructs the armor and then like kind of puts it in place of, hey, I can show you, I can give you evidence that it's okay to begin dropping bits of this armor. And so we kind of, we go through a gradual process of slowly de-armoring and slowly kind of feeling like, oh, does this feel good? Am I okay? Yeah, cool. I'm good. I'm okay. Let's drop some more armor. Let's find some more freedom. And I think there's something pretty nice about just getting kind of aligned on, IFS style, like all parts want what's good for you, and there's no need to bash any part, or there's no need to like try and force the armor off. That's just kind of a painful and uncomfortable process, and kind of it's the opposite of it's a self-defeating process, right? Like keep your safety and find comfortable and gentle and beautiful ways of expanding safety and expanding skill. And I feel that's an okay process that I wish um, got more airtime, that was spoken about more, that was given more attention.
We're right here doing it. Why do you think that's so important, or don't you think that people speak about this enough? I haven't thought about this really, but it feels very good to speak about it.
Mm. Why do I think it's important that de-armoring is gentle?
No, why? I was just so I was just so like taken aback and curious by your comment. I wish it got more airtime. I'm like, hey, yeah, maybe you're right. That's kind of
Yeah.
does it have does it have airtime? Does it not? How are people speaking about this? Are they using an armor metaphor? Do people think it's simple? Oh, just let your guard down, or like be more vulnerable? Is it spoken about as something that's simple or easy, or because it feels like you said so essential? I mean, the carefulness for me, the armor is really like innate and baked in, and so like you said, you can't rip it off. That's gonna hurt, and so
Yeah.
like you said, a slow de-armoring. It's a lowering of the guard. It's a slow process, and you can imagine kind of this, and you need some calm for it. For example, you need to be alone for it to bring it back a little bit. You need time and space for it. Um, that's why I I I didn't go to vibe camp, because it made me tense. I was like, oh, I need to have my place in order. I need to, and then I said, and because I was also about, oh, I want something, maybe I need to find some work, or I need more connections or something. I was like, yeah, that would be nice, but right now this doesn't feel good.
Mm.
You're like clenching a little bit for it, and I got some great advice from two people um, who are wise independently of each other, and they were both like, why don't you relax a little bit, son? Kind of like, I was like, okay, yeah, okay, I could. And I dropped this whole thing oh, I'm running out of money, I need to get a job this year, and oh, I need to like be in time for a whole ass travel to the US or something. And I felt my body going like, weeks, we have a projection of weeks and not just like 2 weeks, and everything must be done by then. It's like, uh, everything is in disarray now because I'm just chilling, and it's like, okay, that's good. That's living, It feels like there's something about an inner tyrant or an armorer. It's like, no, we have to something. It's unbelievable how many have tos you can like dig up in yourself.
Always, yeah. Absolutely always. To me, you're uniquely good at being spacious and gentle with yourself. Especially I'd say within the men that I know. And so when I hear you say that, people that you respect who are people that you consider to be wise tell you to relax and you're open to that and you relax, to me that speaks of a skill that I don't see that often, because and maybe I'm just projecting all the ways that I am onto the world and all the ways that I've been onto the world. I don't think people are particularly good at relaxing. Like the average person I know just isn't good at relaxing and is not good at being gentle and is not good at creating space and isn't good at noticing that going to vibe camp is making them tighten up and stress out. And from what I see, like the ways that I would have very often responded to that and the ways that I think a lot of my friends respond to that is like, okay, I'm just, it's stressing me out, but I'm bigger than this. I'm stronger than this. I
Right.
can go to vibe camp. And I feel like people really like, we kind of egg each other on when it comes to that. Like friends would like, hell yeah, good on you. You were stressed out and you overcame it and you went and you had fun. And I think more and more I'm like, no, like, well done for not like stressing yourself out to have fun. Like,
Yeah,
you
like what
have
the
fun
hell?
now by not
Yeah,
stressing yourself out.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Just back
Well
down
done
from it
for
and
not
like
delaying it.
seek the fun in thine own garden. I really,
Absolutely.
it's all about.
And seek the gentleness and seek the relaxation and seek the softness and allowance and allowness. I I feel like that for me definitely doesn't get that much airtime, and I connect de-armoring and you said de-armoring, or is it people are saying be more vulnerable or be more open or be whatever it is,
Now,
the kind of
be it now.
do it right now. The umbrella that they all sit underneath for me is something like something like growth or development or yeah, like personal development, right? And I think what I don't see get enough airtime under that umbrella is gentleness and is nourishment and is softness and is spaciousness. And I feel, yeah, I just feel there's a way that all of these things are done and talked about, whether it's becoming more vulnerable or whether it's, let's say, becoming more confident or becoming socially more open. However, we want to talk about ways that a human being can change themselves to, let's say, have a higher quality of life. There's a there's there's a warrior likeness to the way that it's talked about. There's a kind of discipline, a yangness
Mm.
that I think like dominates the modalities, the methodologies, the advice, the approaches. It all just seems pretty willful, willpower fueled, kind of like strength based. And I think that's what when I say I wish I had more airtime, I something in me more and more sees the need for gentleness and softness as an approach. And I think for me, that comes from a place of like, obviously I'm just talking about myself, right? So for the majority of my time in my life, I have come at growth and development and confidence and vulnerability with it, like, I will do this and I will like break myself if I have to, but I'm going to do this and it's going to use strength and it's going to be uncomfortable and I'm going to be scared, but whatever, I'm courageous, I can push through it all. And really more and more now, okay, one, I think I was that way, not because I was just like um in a silo of craziness or I'm like an individual case of self-disciplined madness. Like all of the people that I respected, the books that I was reading, the things that I was listening to, the people that I wanted to be like, encouraged that, right? And these were the ways that they told me that I should move in the world and how I can grow and how I can de-armor myself is like rip the armor off was pretty much the advice for the majority of my life. And now I'm like, I just, that's one way, but it's not the way and it's not the only way. And I feel this growing need in myself to, one, embody a different way of just like allowing growth to happen, because I think our nature is growth and change. Like that is one of the most cliched sayings. So we're always responding to the world around us, to our environment. We have these desires. We want more connection with other people. And so if we just like allow ourselves to sit in that desire and we go about the world doing things, we're naturally going to adapt and change in ways that allow more of that desire to like manifest. We're just going to be more open. We're just going to start feeling softer, because that's just kind of, it's how growing up goes. It's how growing goes. And yeah, more and more I feel this need to be like, hey, I think growth and de-armoring and increases in vulnerability and expression and aliveness and everything good can be super gentle, and it can be soft, and it can like follow the pace and rhythm of nature. It does not have to be top down forceful. It does not have to be warriored through. It does not have to be disciplined. And I always touch in with, I think for me, I always keep touching back into this, I don't know what to call it, like this thought exercise, we can say, where I feel into how I would be supporting a child of mine going through these processes. And it is so very clear to me that there is, under no circumstance would I tell my kid, like, rip off the armor, or under no circumstance would I be like, you have to be vulnerable. I can see that your body's freaking out and you're scared shitless, but listen, kiddo, you gotta overcome that, otherwise you're not leaving this room. You know, it would kind of be like, oh, your system is reacting. Here's a hug. Let's step away. Let's notice what's going on. Let's create space and time for this to like investigate this, to allow this to naturally unfold. And so I've definitely been feeling this and kind of thinking about it, and like doing a bunch of my own writing about it a lot and having a lot of conversations about it, but just feeling a need for definitely a more yin approach to a lot of the topics that I think you and I would talk about, and that I think a lot of our friends are interested in. And this is also like big shout out to Diego, who runs the Warriors journey and who's the founder of Zinnia, because I really spent a lot of the Warriors journey. Every morning we would have these shares and be like, you know, who wants the pebble? And I'd be like, me. Or like, who wants the coconut? And I'm like, give me that tiny coconut. I have things to say. And I think I spent at least 21 days out of the entire time there just being like, what if this was softer? What if you didn't have to overcome your fear of fire today? What if you could allow yourself to feel that fear and just not walk on the fire? And we like massive hats off to him, because I think I really just spent the whole time being like, yeah, I'm game, and I will do these things. I will do all of these fear-based exercises insofar as everything in me is in alignment, and I'm not coercing myself and I'm not forcing myself. And it comes from a place of some part of me, like, I'll jump off the cliff, I'll do the waterfall jump, but I guarantee you I'm going to stand here for 45 minutes until I feel some sense of excitement and aliveness and joy at the idea of jumping, and not just fear that I have to push myself over. And I really, yeah, I was feeling a lot of respect for his patience and openness and allowance, because I feel he had a theme and an approach and a way of doing things. And I think I spent the entire time just being like, have you considered that there could be a different way? And I would just like to talk about the different way. He was super chill with it, and he was very open to it. And I think there was a lot of adaptiveness. So that's also another reason why the theme and the topic is very alive in me. I think it was very alive before, and then I was put into the perfect container, which is like the most yang way that you can do growth and development, the warrior's journey. Like just the yangest of yang, the most masculine, right? And in that container I could really see all the ways where like that approach served a time and a place in my life, but it does not anymore. And now that it doesn't, I'm like, hey, I actually, this is pretty cool. I wish I'd known about this earlier. I wish I'd had more of a chance to like luxuriate in my growth and in the ways that my being changes.
Like in
So
a bath. luxuriate, like bathe the armor off.
Absolutely. Bathe the armor off. Yeah, moisturize the armor off. Like get a massage everywhere where like skin is exposed enough because the armor isn't there, and like slowly allowing that space to expand. Thank you
Luxuriate.
for listening and letting me articulate, verbalize this, kind of go on this little rant, because it feels strangely important to me, and I feel like the more I talk about it, the more I write about it, the more I get to express it, the kind of clearer parts of it become, and it seems to be driving a part of me right now.
That's awesome. So great. I just thought one thing the entire time, that from that point where you kind of said yang and like approach, attack the thing, it's like
Yeah.
the motion is to step back. It's the yin motion. Step back. Step back. Step back from how much we can achieve by stepping back from something. How the
Absolutely.
praise, the airtime for the praise for good on you. You step back from a thing. You did not, good on you for not doing a thing. Oh my God, that's so nice. Good on you for not stressing yourself out. Good on you
Absolutely.
for deciding that this is not the hill to overcome or even to die on. Just step back, play another game, live another day. There's another day, there's another dollar to
There is.
everywhere.
There is. Not even the hill to climb. You and I are both big fans of Tim Ferriss. I love Tim Ferriss. Tim, I really love you. I still haven't written him that email letter, but I really should at some point. And I, like, an example that comes to my mind is, I feel the reason there's a lot of discipline and maybe yangness in the approach of personal development and growth is it's all kind of like led by very yang people. There's a particular type of personality that gets really big in these spaces and therefore has influence in these spaces and therefore determines the approaches and the modalities that are popular and that we kind of collectively begin to deem as right or as better. And a great example for me is like younger Tim Ferriss. And more I find myself feeling like I don't want young Tim Ferriss' approach to growth and development as cool and as awesome and as useful as it was at a certain stage in my life, and it seemed to be for him. Like the question I'm holding is like, if Tim Ferriss was a deeply, intensely nurturing mother, what would his like 4-hour, 4-body book series look like? What kind of things would he be writing and sharing about then? And like, what would that look like? And actually, maybe I want more of that. Like, maybe I want a very soft, like omnipresent deity-like figure that's just always like, hey, well done. You're really good. I think
Good
it's enough
boy.
growth
Good
today.
girl.
Exactly. Tomorrow you'll grow some more and you won't even have to put an effort. Let's go enjoy the sun right now.
Awesome. I'm going to cut this out as a highlight and tweet it at him and see what he says. Because it's a good question. It's a good question. What would young version Tim Ferriss do if he was also a really great and nurturing mother? What is that the question?
I think so. I think he's also a lot softer now,
He
so
is, yeah. It's very
he's
enjoyable. And
very
it's
beautiful.
lowering of the armor, right? Like you can really see it. There's more vulnerability, more willingness to share a personal story and so on and so on. That's what we're doing here. We are at time. I hate to say it. It's an absolutely I'm not ready yet. Not ready to. You hang up first. Um, do you want to do like a final thing or something? I thought we could like open up the book that we both have in front of us
Oh yeah.
and just do like do a random pick and see if it hits.
Well, let's do that.
Do you want to do that? Do a
Hmm.
little randomizer?
Yeah. You want to go first or should I?
No, we just do one. And I think you
Oh,
open it up, pick it, and then we can both have a mini riff on it, and then we can say goodbye
well,
because you gotta go. And me too, I
gotta
guess.
go. So, this is the book. Look at it, the creative act, a way of being. I'm reading it for a few reasons, but honestly, the main reason I'm reading it is that viral video of Rick Rubin where he's like, I get paid for my taste. I'm like,
Yeah.
Rick, you got to listen to everything that you have ever said and written because that sounds phenomenal. Let's get that done. And with that said,
A little randomizer.
you should
Randomizer.
say
Should I say stop?
yeah.
Okay, one more. One more. Stop. Ooh.
Ooh. Oh, okay. Upon hearing this story, I found myself in tears and confused by the sudden swell of emotion. After further reflection, I realized that the story spoke to the power of purity in the creative act. What was it that allowed a machine to devise a move no one steeped in the game had ever made in thousands of years of play? It wasn't necessarily its intelligence, it was the fact that the machine learned the game from scratch with no coach, no human intervention, no lessons based on the expert's past experience. The AI followed the fixed rules, not the not the millennia of accepted cultural norms attached to them. It didn't take into account the 3,000-year-old traditions and conventions of Go. It didn't accept the narrative of how to properly play this game. It wasn't held back by limiting beliefs. So I can keep going, and I also feel like there's enough. There's enough there. It's
Got
very
it.
funny that it's about AI.
And it's very funny that it's about doing things from scratch.
Yes.
Because I feel like I mean, the story we shared is learning how to speak when we,
Mm,
in some of our earlier conversations. And to do that, I mean, and what we talked about today is a whole bit on moving courageously without
mm,
armor in the world because we can socially, right? Pretty much, and because we can speak, and so that's some high level continuation of that. And I'm always so grateful to have learned things from scratch. So hard, such a hard road, but I feel like I have so much access to things that are to talks that I can talk because I've also walked the walks,
mm,
because I've
mm.
learned things from scratch, because I've been in front of a seemingly insurmountable wall of what the fuck does one do here? And it's because somehow I was not clued into convention.
Mm. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like for me, if and when I'm learning things from scratch, it's also often that the conventions that I was taught aren't particularly useful. Or at least they're not useful in achieving the goals that I want to achieve. And so realizing that, yeah, learning from scratch has definitely been doing a lot of unlearning and a lot of unknotting and undoing, and then starting from purity, and from there building up structures that are more supportive for the kind of inner environments that I want to create and how I want to furnish this inner house. And so, yeah, I think it does feel pretty challenging to do it from scratch, or to kind of just to wing it and to teach yourself and to do it very experientially and experimentally, no matter what it is, the thing that you're trying to learn. Uh, yeah, it also does allow for more. It allows for more creative freedom, and I think it does allow for a sense of playing by your own rules some way somehow, because there is evidence. I want to say an intuition, but like an intuition developed via evidence that leaning left or leaning right actually leads to like very interesting and beautiful results, despite whatever the convention says, right? And so I think convention is don't talk to strangers. And you and I both know, like, talk to strangers. Like, obviously, just be reasonable and sensible, but really talk to strangers. What else is there to do in this life, in this world, than to talk to other human beings? Like, I'm really not sure, to be honest with you. And so it's okay to do that. And I feel you can be much more comfortable doing that if you're coming from a place of experience. And yeah, experience comes from starting from empty and then just block by block, conversation by conversation, interaction by interaction, hurt by hurt, joy by joy, building up just this library that you can reference later on. So that's some fun riffing on this. It kind of feels like we're creating a song or a rap, but it's a conversation about creative purity and starting from scratch. I just wanted to say I miss you. This has been really nice, very nice to chat. And it's just so yeah, I get all excited and energized, and it feels so so joyous for my body and my brain. And yeah, just like really, really touching in with wow, I love this. I love being with you. I love interacting with you. I love being around you. It feels really nice to do.
Love you too. It's been a great pleasure. And thanks for your wise words. And I'm once again amazed at the magic of conversation and how we've gone from a whole potpourri of possibility to a topic that apparently concerns us both at this time. How amazing. This is how we like to do it. I'm very happy.
I'm sorry if we didn't get to your notes and your questions. I also would like to, yeah, maybe we do a round
Contrivance,
two.
Nibras, just contrivance, just, we did. I referenced some of your tweets that I did want to reference, and they were so timely and apt. We'll be with each other soon through one contrivance or another.
Yes, I want to really not do too much movement this summer or for the next 4 months. I'm kind of, I'm debating whether I want to base myself in, this doesn't have to be part of the podcast now, I'm just like chatting to you, whether I want to base myself in Portugal or Indonesia. And kind of, first I was like, yeah, just do Portugal for 4 months. And now I'm like, do I want to just like fuck off to Indonesia basically and just really solo it out? But if I am in Portugal
As if. As if. I'm saying as if I'm making fun of you. So are you going to solo it out? No, sorry, please keep talking.
Yeah, if I'm in Europe, then I'll probably do a Berlin trip. But I think that'll be the only trip that I do.
Cool.
Little cheeky week in Berlin, see all the friends, and then
Nice.
back to Portugal.
Cheeky weeky.
Cheeky weeky.
Okay. It's been a real pleasure. So
My
nice.
pleasure always. Pleasure always. I really want to get to a place. The reason I'm having a lot of recorded conversations right now is just like this deep desire to get to a place where I can drop as much awareness of some third party listener or watcher and like really get into a place where they feel as close as humanly possible to what a conversation would feel like without the camera, without the recorder, without the microphone. And
Dude, of course.
slowly and surely, slowly and surely.
That's my whole thing. I love it. It feels like I have so many conversations IRL that already where I feel like I'm basically broadcasting if I'm like asked the proper questions. I feel like our conversations have always been like that because we've grown up on this. Like the most meaningful conversations were broadcasted to us. They were not had in a kitchen. Like some, yeah, but that would really this type of facts thing. Yeah. And so there's the podcast happens in real life already, movie shit, and then but then of course we are having many real conversations with real people eye to eye in private chambers.
Yes.
And it's for me, I've had so many real conversations like this. That's why I'm using Discord, because it simulates my how it would be most likely. I don't use Zoom, for example. So I never used Zoom. I was not part of the workforce in the pandemic. So why would I use Discord to talk with the homies. This is this. And this is part of the simulation that it's like that it's in the realm of comfort. And so I'm really working on this too. And, call me anytime if you want to talk like publishing, podcasting. I'm moving closer to it. And, it's only a matter of time until we, across this great spectrum of funny internet people, there's a scene. The scene is emerging right now, right? TPOT's getting real productive right now.
Absolutely. I think also like when I think of a lot of the conversations that you and I have that I have with my friends, there was a quality of almost goldenness to them, or like genuine, true usefulness, and just like this kind of energetic aliveness when we're having them.
Yeah.
And what I struggle with and what I continue struggling with is, for me, some of that starts to disappear when some part of me is aware that there's going to be an observer or a listener. And that can be the camera and the microphone, or it can even actually just be one other person sitting there, or like listening in, right? And so I'm not sure. I think it's just the reps and it's the practice, and it'll come with time. But like trying to get as, maybe it's far too idealistic, but as close as possible to the quality of those conversations that happen in private chambers, because they're like, if I could have had some, if somebody had secretly recorded them without my knowing, I would have been happy with them being published.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
great.
I
I
know these
wish,
feelings. Yeah.
I wish there was some surround recording happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, just starting to develop some relationship with the microphone and with the camera, where like true authenticity can happen, because I feel it doesn't happen too much when cameras and microphones are present. So, like reality TV show obviously isn't that real, but getting there, it's an interesting challenge. So I love that you're trying to problem solve that as well, and I love the idea of curating digital environment, or using a digital environment that just gives the sense of having a private conversation. I think that's a very smart approach.
Yeah. Just came through. Yeah. That's dope. Yeah. Yeah. Much to talk about. Bit of the, I know the feeling of having an observer there that kind of throws you off.
See,
And not, and I don't, I mean this in the least like a ribby, mimi way possible. I feel like I've done most overcoming it by main charactering it, and like also leaning into, no, we're having this conversation right now and you're welcome to listen, but it's, and you're welcome to be included if you can run, but it's like big boys and girls are talking now, kind of like, you know, and
I remember.
this, huh?
I said, I remember.
Yeah, you remember? What do you mean?
Like, I feel like I'm familiar with what that Simon approach can be like.
Okay,
Right?
okay, yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, I'm sure you've witnessed it. Because for me, it's like I don't. Yeah, and then but anyway, just as Mother Tim Ferriss would say, Tina Ferriss, just bathe in that soup, and
Yeah.
it will nourish you, and you will be there in no time. You will wake up one day, and everything will be easy. In that regard. Yeah.
That's why I'm on a little like podcast run at the moment, or why I feel so much more openness to doing them, because it's like, hey, the only way through is through, and actually this is a very gentle and enjoyable through. I get to have beautiful conversations with beautiful friends, with people that I would be talking to anyway, and just like very gently and lightly and easily this awareness of an observer starts to drop, and that comfort grows, and just there's more like presence and being lost in the conversation. So wise advice, Tina. You give wise advice.
Tina Ferriss, baby. Oh, so nice.
Cool.
Miss you already.
Yes.
Yeah, would be lovely to be in touch if, inshallah, uh, with about this stuff. You know, whenever I would be so happy to talk more about this. And yeah, today was, you know, I'm really glad. I'll say this as a goodbye. You know, today came about really easily. I really enjoyed that. At first, you know, our first conversation about do you want to be on the podcast was like, yeah, nah, you were traveling, nah.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, step back from it. I couldn't hear your last voicemail. I was like, ooh, communication breakdown, Led Zeppelin, you know. I was like, well, okay, we'll try another week. I was away 2 weeks. I didn't do anything. And
Mhm.
normally I would have been afraid of, I need to get back to the podcast. I've started. It's like, I kind of want to record a podcast on Friday. And I have this thing allocated this day. I'm kind of in discussion with Michael Kersey, but he's a bit of a fickle beast. And I was like, well, ask Nibras. You two were like on my short list. And here we are. And it's in the day and we will still have a beautiful day. And so, yeah, stepping back, reapproach carefully, like with the shy animal. Not meaning you're the animal, but the thing as well, the It's also the
Yeah.
animal. And that ease that we had today, in the conversation,
Yes.
and what you said in the beginning, that my calm and calming energy. Oh, I like that so much. I love to play like that. No pressure, baby. No pressure. So I'm very happy that it comes across and that something's made. So happy. What
Me
a life.
too.
Imagine the professional
Me too. Me
conversationalist.
too. A friend gave me a copy of The Surrender Experiment, and it was one of those books that I think I was a bit judgmental and just didn't want to read it for a long time. And I got the copy and I read it, and ever since I've read it, it's kind of definitely mind virused me, I think in the best of ways, because I find myself looking for ease so much more and like really taking that ease as a sign of it's like a little thumbs up from life, right? And so if it just flows and then you're running late and I'm running late and we sit and we record and the day just works, when things flow and they're easy and they kind of seem to unfold in and of themselves without me needing to push them and to force them, it feels like a really, really great sign. And so I'm right there with you. I'm glad about the smoothness and the easiness of this today.
And now we're going to say goodbye. Otherwise, we have a whole nother podcast on our hands and we can't have
Bye.
that.
Love you lots, Simon. Take
Big
care.
love. See you soon, Kat.
Goodbye, Pre. Till soon.
Ciao. Nibras is on a toilet break. What rhymes with toilet break? Soylent flake. Are there Soylent flakes? Soylent flake. My Soylent has flakes in it. Yeah. My Soylent has flakes in it. That's a Reddit thread that exists. It's a bit yucky. Toilet break, Soylent flake. All right.